also looking at that you haven't flown out. So even the company, when they're doing the budgeting, we always take a scenario analysis. We will look into 10%, 20% up and down in the prices of the goods, in terms of our buyers, in terms of our suppliers, and so on. But nobody anticipated that the whole logistic world will be standstill. uh, some of the industries will, for example, the biggest losers are the in terms of the airline industry, the hotel industry, and so on. So nobody anticipated that. Consumer goods still okay, but in terms of the luxury good, people are not buying that much. So many brands, for example, H&M, Zara, and all have already shutting down their operation in many part of the world. So budgeting is important, but we also need to see that some of the macro condition, or some of the unseen condition can arise, which will be difficult. So that will also affect the whole costing and pricing. I can tell you that with talking to many of my corporate friends, they have to revisit the whole budget for this year after 6 months. In fact, they were started talking about the first quarter itself, when the numbers started to rise globally, and you can see the lot of disturbances or a lot of issues happening in the world. So as a manager, you need to be flexible. You need to make sure that you are able to identify or adapt to the situation very quickly. That's why this framework will give you an idea how do you interact with different stakeholders within the organization, and how do you make your decision making process easier. If I keep on continue talking about, I can talk 1 hour just on this slide, but I don't want to get you bored with this one. So let's move on this one. But that was from the corporate perspective. But if I look from the personal perspective, we also have to look from our individual financial planning. As I mentioned to you, financial management is not only from the corporate perspective. We also have to look from the individual personal perspective as well. This is a very brief discussion on the personal financial management. We all have money, right? Even it all depends on how do we spend money, whether we have $1 million or whether we have $100. It's all about spending. So sometimes people will say, most of you as a student, you will say, oh, I have less amount of money as the pocket money, why I need to be bothered? But financial management starts with the good habits. It's not about the quantum of money, it's about how do you spend your money. And that are some of the rules which you need to be aware of, and you need to strategize yourself as well. For example, you need to look into your managing your risk. For example, if you were investing into stock market initially, people have lost a lot of money in the beginning of the first quarter of this year because of the stock market going down. At the same time, crypto has been gaining some value. I'm a big critic of crypto. I write a lot of negative things about cryptocurrency because I don't believe in the intrinsic value. You can find some of my articles and some of my dialogue online on that. But again, people have moved on from investing in stocks, especially in the oil and gas stocks, or into the airline stocks, and now they are investing into the cryptocurrencies, or they are investing into the gold and so on. So you have to make sure that you are managing your risk properly. You are able to do that. When it comes to the accumulating wealth, what is the value of what type of instruments you are investing into? Are you saving enough for your retirement? Many people who are going through difficult time during the COVID-19 are the people who do not have enough cash in hand. The general practice, when you start working, always remember you should have a cash buffer of 6 months of spending. That's the minimum. You should have a cash buffer into your liquid cash, which I mean that if you do not have jobs, or if you are changing jobs, or if there is economic or financial crisis in the world, and your country is going through, and you are going through some financial turmoil, you need to have at least 6 months of liquid cash, 6 months of expenditure. So whether you are spending $1,000 or whether you're spending $10,000 in a month, make sure you have liquid cash of 6,000. That's about keeping liquidity in hand, because things can get difficult. But at the same time, you also have to plan for your higher education, because many of you are undergraduate student. I believe here things have become very difficult also in the education sector. Education sector is also going through difficult time because of this. We all have got online learning and all. the classroom experience has been changed. I remember coming to your campus and talking to more than 100 200 students. It is a very different experience. All the academics here, Pak Barto, Ms. Jodita will all agree with me. Seeing a student physical in the class gives you that feeling, that you are interacting with human. At the moment we look like a robot, interacting, looking at some of the images online, and the same goes to you guys as well. And sometimes the students might not be even too responsive. I teach a master level module and I have to push them every few minutes to respond to my questions, because when you are online you tend to be maybe get distracted with the internet, maybe start surfing or looking at other information, checking your mobile phone and all. But when you're in the class, you are paying attention to the lecturers, right? So again, education sector has also changed, but you might need to prepare yourself. One of the good investment in life will be always education. Education never goes waste. So when we're talking about how the financial sector is getting transformed, there will be always new skill areas might be coming in the financial world itself. So try to learn these things. There are a lot of information available online for free. You don't even have to pay for it. You can go to the Coursera or edX, and you don't need certificates for everything. You just need the knowledge, education. So again, you start accumulating wealth for your educational saving. It can be for your retirement and so on. But some of the people can also go into the high risk investment, which I was mentioning you earlier, going into crypto can give you a good return in a short run, but if you are not able to trade properly, you will be able to make a big loss. At the moment, gold is one of the most profitable investment, because it's always inverse relationship. When the price of the oil goes down, the price of the gold will increase, because gold is supposed to be safe haven. Gold is always going to be liquid and people will always invest into the gold. So again, you need to plan, but the investment into high risk is always going to be speculative. So higher the risk taking behavior, higher will be the return, but at the same time you're also going to have a high chance, high probability of losing your money. So make sure you manage your finance properly. Do not invest too much. Do not get attached to money. One of the best rule in finance is that never get attached to the return, because if you start getting attached to the return, you are start going to lose money. You should be very smart enough to make a money and get out of the, otherwise become a gamble. And that's why stock market, or especially in the crypto world or digital currency world, you might get too much attracted to it and you might start losing money. So coming back to the discussion on the financial management, it all depends on how do you manage your goals, financial goals, your priorities, and how do you look into that. The same thing is happening in the corporate world at the same time as well. So if we have to talk about the objectives, it's very important to understand why we are looking into the financial management, and what are the key objectives which we need to look into that. So it is very important to understand each of these objectives. What is the objective of financial management? End of the day, every process has an end result, right? You need to arrive somewhere. So when we're doing the financial management or looking at managing the finance of the individual, or for the organization, for the corporate world, you need to understand what is the goal, why we are doing like this, why we are borrowing from particular source, why we are investing into a particular opportunity, why we should pay dividend this year, why we should not pay dividend this year. These are all corporate finance decision making. But end of the day, all these decision making is guided by some objective. Always make sure that any manager should not take a decision in a haste or with the spur of the moment. Means that you take emotional decision. In corporate world, you should never take an emotional decision, because this is going to backfire, especially when you are in leadership role, because you are looking at managing the whole company, and you're going to make the company afloat. So the key thing is to talk about the profit maximization. The most important goal of managing finance for a company is to maximize the profit, because if you maximize the profit, everybody will be happy in the organization, whether it's your shareholder, whether it's your employees, because if you make profit, you will pass on the bonuses, your stock price will go up, your shareholder will be happy, even the government will be happy, because if your profit, if your revenues are increasing, your profits are increasing, you're paying a higher taxes as well. So everybody involved in the ecosystem where the company operates will be getting advantage of that. For the so if you're looking at to maximize the profit, you also need to understand whether the profit maximization is in the short run or long run. Some of the goals will be short term goals, some of the goals will be long term goals. Short term goals, when you're looking into the 6 months to 1 year, your strategy to look into how do you maximize the profit. Now, for example, I give you a very classic example, something related to you guys, because you are young kids and you are looking at the industry trends and all. For and some of you always go and look for buying the branded stuff, right? At the moment, with the lockdown in many countries, people are not venturing out, people are not buying, for example, especially the female out there, not buying cosmetic. You have to put on a mask, so you're not going to buy branded stuff and all. So how does the fashion industry has transformed themselves? I don't know how many of you have seen that, but the big brands like H&M, Zara, and all have started making trendy mask. So that is a short term initiative taken by a company. If you're not able to generate enough return coming from the high end clothing, then you go into the mask, because everybody now need a mask, and mask is also becoming a fashion trend at the moment. Also talking about your FMC, your toiletries, for example. uh, uh, People are now buying more and more sanitizer. And one of the biggest beneficiary industry has been the glove industry, the rubber industry, because people are buying a lot of gloves, people are buying a lot of safety equipments. So the most important sector to invest, if any of you are investing here in the stock market, look for rubber based industry, because they are the one who are making the lot of money at the moment. So again, coming back to the profit maximization, you need to define a goal in a short term, in the long run. Long run will be a 5 year plan for a company, and you revisit to see how much economic condition had changed, how much company condition had changed, and how do you adapt to the changing condition. And I believe that every company at the moment, because of COVID, has adapted themselves, has changed their strategy. Losing out or removing your staff is not the ultimate goal. But again, if you have not maximized or strategized your hiring, you might have to end up losing your people as well. So again, you need to look into that, how do we take the decision properly, and how do we use the finance to manage the company properly. Then we look into the let me look into the wealth maximization. In wealth maximization, when we talk about is to look into how do we manage the wealth of the organization. Wealth in the sense, we're looking into shareholder value. uh, when we are a listed company, when you go and look into your corporate finance theory, any decision taken by the managers is going to have an impact on the overall share price of the company. So the managers are working on behalf of the shareholders, right? And your role is to maximize the profit. I'm not too sure how many of you have read this thing, but agency theory is one of the most important concept in the corporate finance, and that drives the wealth maximization theory as well. Many of the companies in the bigger companies these days do not give 100% salary in the form of the cash salary. They give you stock options. The reason they give you stock option, because if you are having a stock option in the company, your goal will be aligned with the goal of the company. So if the company is doing good, stock price is rising, your individual wealth will also rise. So again, the objective of financial management will be to look into the wealth maximization. Yeah, you have to look into how do you maximize the share value in the market. In order to drive the share value, you have to show returns to the market. It's all driven by the returns. A simple news comes out tomorrow that Facebook has lost one of the, or Facebook has to pay a fine in EU due to some privacy issue. You can see that tomorrow 1 billion of wealth of Mark Zuckerberg will be wiped out. But again, people like Zuckerberg or what you call the Warren Buffet, losing 1-2 million on a daily basis is not too important. But imagine if we have to lose even 100,000, we will be crying like, like a small child. So managing that value of the stock is very important. So when you start working for a company, you realize that how does you take decision. Every decision has an impact on a listed company. You even, for example, if the CEO falls sick, or if the CFO loses a job, that will have an impact on that. So corporate is a very interesting world. It's one of the brutal world, and it's one of the most organized. I will not say a crime, but I will say very, very, very what you call the interesting playground where everybody plays safely and they all look for their own benefit. So some of you will realize that when you start working, but always make sure that your goal is attached to the company goal, which is to maximize the overall benefit for the company. If you go into the estimation of financial requirement, why you need to borrow money, for example, what is the purpose? For example, if there's a demand for 1 million of cash injection in the company, do you need all the 1 million at one go, or do you need in tranches? Because borrowing the money and keeping the cash idle is going to backfire, because you're not going to get any return out of it. So you need to understand the financial requirement. The same thing goes into your personal decision as well. If when you go and see, you always see these offer in the malls, buy two get one free. That's just to induce you to buying. Maybe you don't need a third one. So maybe you can play smart. You identify your friends, go together for a shopping, and you buy three, and then you distribute the cost of the three into the three friends. So that is a financial management, rather than buying the same type of t-shirt, three in a piece, and then one is lying in your wardrobe and not wearing at all. So you need to understand what is the requirement of the firm. How do we borrow the money? And again, we have to plan that. We have to budget all the money. If we are going to pay, for example, dividend, why we need to pay dividend? Do we have any need of the cash? If we need to have a cash, always remember, owner's equity or the retained earnings is always the cheapest source of finance for any company, right? You don't have to borrow at all. So you need to understand the financial requirement. Always keep some buffer of cash in the company. Is always going to help you during the difficult time. When you're talking about the proper mobilization means how do you mobilize, collect the money, what are the different sources. You can have many avenues to borrow money, right? You can go to the banks, you can go to the bond market, you can go to the share market to again reissue after your IPO, or you can even go for the equity financing from private equity. In fact, in technology world these days, you also having crowdfunding, you also having alternative finance. You don't really have to depend only on the traditional capital market sources or traditional financing sources to do different mobilization. You can also reach out to your venture capitalists. Venture capitalists are no more lending small amount of money, they are going into millions of dollars. Venture capitalists has grown up big. So if you have to borrow money, they will not be charging you high interest, but they might be taking up some stake in your company. There's no harm in bringing Elon Musk in your company, in your startup. Why? Because that will add value to your company as well. So again, you need to see that how do you mobilize the channel of the money and so on. I'm just be cautious of the time here. I know I'm going a bit overboard. Um, if we look into the if you look into the utilization of finance, are we properly utilizing the money or not? I think this one will go into your requirement and utilization together. When you require the money, when you borrow the money, how do you utilize the money? You should never borrow the money to pay dividend, for example. Again, talking from corporate finance perspective, a company should never borrow money to pay dividend to the shareholders. Why? Because this is adding pressure to the company finances. If you do not have the capacity to pay dividend, just forego it for the moment. If you do not have the capacity to pay bonus, for example, for your employees for that particular year, forego it. but maybe after 2 years you're going to pay a very huge amount of money. And that's what the company even do. Sometimes they have a extra dividend, no special dividend, which only comes after every 5 years or 10 years or once in a lifetime of a company. So you need to see that where this money is coming from and how you are able to manage that. So that's called the utilization of finance. You should also look into that. The company should not invest. You should not buy on unprofitable business, because as a manager you always want to invest, expand. Again, coming back from agency theory, you always look to expand the size of the company because you want to be a manager of a big company, but do not invest into an unprofitable business. So that is again a wrong utilization of finance. If you look into the proper cash flow, make sure you are able to have a proper accounting system, and you do not leave too much on credit, where you're not able to recover the money. Too much of money left with the creditors will be a damaging to that. Company should also make sure that they do pay the what you call the expenses, the fixed expenses like your utilities bills, your wages, salary. All these are fixed expenses, should be paid on time. I give you a very simple example. During this lockdown in many countries, including Malaysia, there was a moratorium, right, on the loan amount. The bank started not charging the monthly installment from the customer because of the COVID-19. But many people didn't realize the downside of it. Why? Because you are only delaying the payment. Your financial commitment is not going to change. In fact, for example, the people who are supposed to pay 500 ringgit a month on a general basis, after the 6 months from September, they end up paying 1,000. So imagine if you would have paid 500, if you had cash, you would not have the burden of paying 1,000 at one go. So again, the cash flow becomes very important. If you have a capacity to repay back your lenders, pay back on time. Never keep that. Same goes to your friend also. It's a very simple thing. When you borrow from your friend, also try to make sure that you are able to pay back on time, and you are able to maintain that healthy relationship as well. But at the same time, you also look into the managing the finance. You also need to make sure that there is a proper coordination. When you are managing a finance is a very integral source, because finance is the only department which cater for all other departments. You like it or not, whether it's a procurement, whether it is production, whether it is any department of the company, they need to take money from finance department, because finance department has to approve all the money, right? So when you are dealing with different departments of the organization, you are managing the finance, make sure there's proper coordination. There should be a department budget. There should be a department account reconciliation, so you don't lose the money in transit from one place to another. You make sure that the people are generating the report to give you the thing. That also gives you an idea whether each segment, if you are a very large company, then you have different entities within the company, and then you have to manage the returns or the expenses of each entity. But if you are a small company, you also have to look into the coordination between different departments, because you need to make sure that you are looking into the proper value of the money. You also have to see that are you able to create reserve or not. One of the important thing is that keep on building your reserve, because reserve is that amount of money which is going to help you. That's the extra amount of liquidity in your hand which is going to help you during difficult time. I keep on talking about COVID because very recent companies which were able to survive during this time because of the one who has have enough liquidity in hand, enough cash in hand. And the same goes to individual as well. You need to have the so whenever you have extra return, do not go and spend everything, lavish parties and all. As a student also, if you are saving, you're not traveling to the campus, you are saving money on your transportation, don't go and buy new clothes and all. Keep that money for the future use. You never know what will be the purpose of it. The same goes to the company as well. They need to have that value into that. So create reserves is very important. Increase efficiency. Make sure that you are managing the money properly. You are looking into the proper distribution of the money. Every department of the company is able to be efficient, managing the finance properly and being efficiently. There should be a proper discipline in the sense that money is not being spent abruptly. You are not going to have only into the wastage, going to misuse of finance and things like that. The other thing is very much on the capital side. You look at your capital structure, how much you are going to borrow from the banks, how much you're going to raise money through equity. Are you going to have preference shares? Are you going to have uh, uh, bonds of different qualities? Are you going to go for syndicate financing and so on? So explore everything, whatever you have in hand, and that will be important for you to give idea about how you look into that. Because if you are able to come up with a proper capital structure, you will be also able to reduce your cost of capital, because end result is your cost of capital, which is going to give you the, because that is what you're going to use to discount your cash flow to arrive at your net present value of any of your investment, and that also shows the riskiness of your company. So if you relate, see, financial management, if you understand financial management, you also understand corporate finance in a way, because financial management will help you to manage the corporate finance. So you need to make sure that the capital structure is well defined for the company. The cost of capital, the purpose is to reduce the cost of capital. That will eventually reduce the riskiness of the company, and that will also help to increase the return on the on the investment for the company as well for the shareholder. Also reduce your operating risk, create goodwill in the market. Need to be make sure that if you have a goodwill comes from the making good practices in the organization. Good practices means you are able to repay your lenders on time, you are able to pay your employees on time. So even, for example, if you have maintained a good relationship and you have a cash crunch during COVID, for example, some of your employees can go on half pay, for example. Some of the employees can wait to receive the salary after some point of time. So that comes from the creating a good financial management, having a good reputation with all the stakeholders. And the ultimate result, ultimate objective of financial management is to see that how to make the company alive, how to make sure the company is afloat, they are able to survive through a difficult time. Because the corporate world is very brutal. If you do not have enough money, your lenders will keep start haunting you. They will start looking for their money back, and then eventually you might have to file for bankruptcy, and the company might collapse in that aspect. So these are some of the objectives. um, in terms of importance, importance of financial management is very important for the whole organization, but it comes from three important decisions which you take, which I've talked earlier: your financing decision, your investment decision, and dividend decision. Again, these are very broad topics and we can talk a lot about it, but financing decision makes sure that you are able to get the money from the right sources at the right cost. Do not go for borrowing at a very higher value if you're not able to sustain, because what happens sometimes, most of the bankruptcy takes place in the company which have borrowed huge amount of money at a higher cost. Do not extend your length of your reach if you're not able to accommodate it. For example, if you are a 5 feet tall, and if you are going to have a 3 feet tall bed, that means you are not able to accommodate yourself on that bed, right? So same thing happens in the financing. Do not borrow if you cannot afford to repay back. So try to make sure that you are able to borrow within your range of repayment. You have the capacity to repay. Invest wisely. Sometime you will have opportunities individually as well as the finance manager of the company. Do not go for unprofitable business. Do not acquire unprofitable business, because you might be acquiring a bad business, and that can bring a. There have been a lot of corporate failures when it comes to the investment. Bigger firms have burned their fingers when they invest into bad companies. Sometimes it is because of the on the spur of the moment you believe that this is a good decision. Discuss with your team. It's always good to discuss with your stakeholders. Make a combined decision, and then only invest wisely. Dividend also will play an important role. You don't have to pay your shareholders if you are experiencing some growth opportunity. You should be able to pass on the message to the shareholder that we are not paying dividend this year because we are expanding, we are taking over new businesses, or we are going into new product line, and so on. So that is about the decision making. But when it comes to the looking into how it is going to help it. If you are able to manage these three decisions, financing, investment, and dividend policies, you are going to have sufficient fund at a minimum cost. You will be able to manage that. You will be able to acquire that. You will be also be looking at utilization of the fund, because you are able to do your investment properly. You are able to retain cash. Remember, keep on building your reserve. Building reserve is very important for a firm. Also generate profit, because if you're not able to generate profit, you will not be able to pay to your shareholders. You will also not be able to grow. Growth opportunity is very important. One of the important characteristic, if you are a new firm, is to look into what is your growth opportunity, how much you can grow. The growth value proposition is the one which is driving. Just take example of Tesla. For example, Tesla has encountered lot of setback, but they always look to venture into new areas of investment. So they are looking to expand, modernize, electric cars, for example, going to space, their space program, for example, looking at the renewable energy, for example. Look at the company which are not expanding. For example, look at Apple. Apple is no more expanding. Apple has only one of their tagline product, iPhone, right? And iPhone keep on increasing the number of cameras on the back of the phone, but I don't see any other growth opportunity, for example. So what's happening with the Apple is now a very much mature firm at the moment. You don't see much of the changes in the stock price. It might be on a downward trend. And the reason why, because the share market also looks at the growth opportunity. So try to generate profit, try to give positive news to the market, which will be able to help you in growing, sorry, I missed the last point. And also try to have this reserve and reinvestment for the company, which is going to help you doing that. Now, I did mention about the stakeholder. Most of you who are doing accounting and finance will be going to work into a company in the finance capacity. So you have different roles to play. You can be either playing an executive function. Executive function means managerial role. Managerial role means decision making role. So you will be taking on some of the decision making roles as a manager in the company. You will be doing some forecasting in the sense what's going to happen in the future, what will be the cost, what will be the interest rate in the market, what will be the how do you hedge, for example. If you are a company which need oil, do you want to go with the hedging, or you want to go to the market price? At the moment, market price is good enough because oil price is already subdued, right? You don't have to hedge. But when the oil price is going up, you might be looking into forecasting the price, and you're looking into that. You can also look at the investment decision. You also look into the corporate asset structure, which are the fixed asset, how much you want to invest into fixed asset. Do you want to buy your own building and all? Look at the companies coming in financial world these days. Fintech companies do not have a fixed asset these days. They only have technology asset, or they might have patents. Patents are becoming more valuable asset at the moment compared to looking into the fixed asset. So how do you look into deciding on those things? You also look into the appraisal of financial performance, all your ratios. You make sure you show a positive growth into that, and you are able to do a proper analysis. Try to see how the improvement has been done, what can be done to further improve the particular analysis or the ratio. And as a manager, you also have to advise the top management. Most of the time what happens, it is always a combined decision of a CEO and CFO. These are two are the more important playmaker in any corporate world, because CEO can have a strategic direction, but if he doesn't have a money, if he doesn't have a guidance from finance manager, he will not be able to manage that. So make sure as a finance manager you are able to do analysis, able to give some estimation what's going to happen in the future, and advise your top manager as well. If you look into the incidental function, if you're not at the senior decision making role, you're not the manager, you are just starting as a newcomer, you will be looking at the record keeping and reporting. Make sure your record keeping is up to date. It doesn't have any loopholes. You also prepare financial statement which is accurate in nature. Financial fraud is becoming a big issue these days. At the moment, corporate fraud is one of the very highly unethical area emerging. I don't know how many of you have heard about it, but there's a new stream of accounting coming called forensic accounting. Forensic accounting is teaching you how to detect fraud within an organization. Unfortunately, many companies go through the fraud practices, and even big four, when they are evaluating, they are able not to. I think Jyotita is smiling, but that's a reality. Sometimes even the big four do not play their role properly. But as an individual, if you are playing, because make sure that you are doing a role properly, otherwise you can be also prosecuted and put behind the bar. Because if you have dealt with a particular company statement accounts, and if that company is involved in any malpractices, all the parties who are involved with that can even go to jail. It depends on jurisdiction, it depends on how severe is the financial crime, and so on. So you should be very careful in doing that. Sometimes you can also play cash planning and supervision when you are managing a small entity, a team of group of people. Credit management becomes very important, and you also make sure that you are safeguarding the securities of the company. So the different role depending on where you fit it. So at least many of you will be fitting in one of these two categories, whether you'll be playing a role of a manager or you are playing a role of an individual starting early. Everybody starts small. You directly can't become a CFO of any company, because you learn from experiences. So you have to go through the cycle. Even in academic world, when we become professor, we start with a normal lecturer. We start as a tutor, for example. You tutor, you become lecturer, senior lecturer, associate professor, and professor emeritus, for example. And then you go out to become dean, and you go to become vice chancellor, and so on. So every industry, every profession has a progression. The same thing happened in the financial world. So when you are going to work in a finance company, don't look for big job. Look for a good company where you can learn and you can grow. And that's how all these functions become very important. When you're looking into, you do your job properly, definitely the reward will come. Make sure you understand the best practices of the industry when you're managing the finance of the company, and the rewards will definitely come into time. I think I spent more than what I was expected, 50 minutes just on the background of financial management. But this is one area which is very close to me. In the last 4 or 5 years, I have started talking a lot about fintech. I talked a lot about role of technology, role of technological advancement in financial operations, advising banks. In fact, fintech is the future of financial world. And when we talk about fintech, we talk about financial technology, and technology can be a good enabler in the current world. How do we manage the finance? So these are enablers. Never take them as a disruptor. I'm coming from that school of thought which treat technology as an enabler rather than disruptor. Many people talk about disruption in financial services, depression caused by the robots or automation and artificial intelligence. No, they can be looked as an enabler. Enabler means they are here to help in your work, help in your process to make it more efficient. So some of the things which I'm going to talk about to see how does this thing can help. One of the important thing is to look into the big data. When we say big data, it means it's a huge amount of data. I don't know whether you have heard about something called petabytes. You must be knowing about megabytes, gigabytes, terabyte, but there's something called petabytes. Petabyte is 10 to the power of 15 of the value. So big data means huge amount of data which is coming from your different stakeholders. Now data is collected for different purposes. For example, a company which is in production, for example, will be collecting data about the usage of the product. Now company can have different products. For example, if we talk about FMCG, take a simple example. Everybody has toiletries. You use different brand of toothpaste or different brand of deos and all. Imagine you are a producer of these things. You collect data, which type of product is useful or being more sold in the market. That data will tell you about the customer behavior or customer adoption. If the data tells you that a particular product of your company is not doing good, it's a good time for you to revisit that product and stop production, and maybe channel the resources to other products which are having a high demand. So all these are data points. I believe all of you are on Facebook and you do a Google, search a lot of things on Google. Google and Facebook collect every millisecond of your activities online, whatever you are doing. I don't know how many of you are aware of this or not, but the Zoom is one of the company which we are using right now as a tool, has the biggest gainer during the COVID. You know, you Zoom was listed few years back and there was not many takers. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, even Even Warren Buffett invested some amount of money in Zoom in 2011, but Zoom was never picked up. But if you look at the performance of the Zoom stock, because this is a necessity, right? For me to communicate to you, to give you this lecture, or any other lecturer from, whether it's from Harvard, MIT, Cambridge, and Oxford, and so on, everybody has to depend on Zoom these days, because without Zoom you can't conduct class. You can use Microsoft Team, but that's also from an organization perspective. But if it's going beyond the organization, you might be using Zoom. So again, you need to see that. So Zoom is also collecting data. In fact, there was a data breach. I didn't use Zoom for 4 or 5 months initially, because I was very much curious about the cybersecurity. Because of the fintech world, I get a lot of information on cybersecurity as well. The first few months, Zoom was very much vulnerable with the hacking, and a lot of data of the users has been leaked out from the Zoom platform. But later on, Zoom really put effort to make sure that the data are more secured, their platform is more secured. So again, collecting information. So when we're using Zoom, they're also collecting information, who are the users and so on, and things like that. So companies can collect information for about their product usage. They can also collect information about the popularity, which sector is doing better, which sector is not doing better. They can also collect information about how much is the time for the repayment, or if you are investing into a particular stock, what is their return payment. So a data can give you a lot of information. So these days, data is becoming a new gold for any organization. So if you have data, then you can do a lot of analysis of data, and that analysis will give you insight about the company performance, company different segments, and you can make a lot of decision making on that. So data comes in a unstructured way, but using the data science, you can make it a structured data, and you can, using the data analytics tools, you can optimize and you can visualize your operation, and you can create strategies based on that. Uh, Especially if you're finance people, if you're going to work in the bank, for example, or even if you're managing finance, you need to look into the collecting these data and make sure you are getting some insightful information. What is the time period for the product on shelf? For example, how much time is needed for sale? What is the cost of transporting from one place to another? If there is another alternative way of doing it, all these information will come from some type of information that will come through the big data. And then you can look into the pattern. For example, if the pattern says that I can transfer goods from Surabaya to Jakarta via using an alternative way of logistic, and that can give me a, for every shipment, it can save me $10,000, for example. You are able to make a strategy. You will be able to change your strategy. How do we look into that? Are you going to use different channels? For example, are you going to combine the production opportunity to make a subsidiary of that thing? For example, many companies who are into the airline also started looking into the hotel, for example. So that's called the extension of your product line based on some type of analysis coming to you. So this is about the big data which you're going to use into the company. And one thing which is very important when you look at any data, if you are dealing with the data in finance, data in the accounting, you should make sure that you understand the 3 V's of data. 3 V's means volume, velocity, and variety. These are like a key characteristic of data. If you go into any company and they are looking into financial skills and they ask you about big data, they might ask you this question also. Do you know what are the 3 V's of big data? Or the data is the volume, velocity, and variety. Volume means how much data you are getting. It can come from different size. It can come from different record, which can be manual, which can be automated. It can be stored in the form of transaction. It can be stored in the form of tables, files, and so on. Velocity means how quickly you are getting the data. Some data need to be real time, especially if you're working for a bank or you're working for a financial company. You need to have real time data to make sure that the users who are either investing or spending or doing payment are able to get that. Some of the information will come into near real time. Near real time means it can be delay of a 1 day or a 1 week, but you are still able to make some meaningful decision when you receive it. It can also come into the organization in the form of batches or streams. You can also look into variety. Variety means what type of data you are getting. Is it a structured data, unstructured data, semi-structured data? Data can be in many forms. But to make a meaningful decision making, in a financial world, you always need a structured data, because a structured data is the one which will be helpful for you to identify the pattern, to make some decision making, because end of the day, big data is helping the user of the data to do some decision making and predictive analytics as well. Predictive analytics mean you are able to predict what's going to happen in the future, how your finance will be managed, how your production line will be managed, how your money will be managed, and so on. Another thing is which is taking every organization by storm is talking about AI, artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is a combination of putting into algorithm which can work into the focus of machine learning. You create API, which is the programming interface, application programming interface, and it's all connected to different network, which is called the neural network. So when we talk about AI, we don't talk about AI only as a robot. No, AI is a system. It's an intelligent system, and always make sure AI it's a technology. In order to make a decision making, human is still needed. So you are looking at building an intelligent program, intelligent machine, which is going to solve the problem for the user. Who are the user? You as a manager will be the user. So machine is only here to assist you. The human intelligence is far more superior than machine intelligence. So don't get carried away that machine will take over the human role. No. In order to make sure that you are safe with your job in the market, you understand how the machine is evaluating the data and giving you the output. End of the day, the result is still taken by the human. Maybe the crunching of the data, you might have people initially, but now some of the people job will be automated using the machine learning. It will put into system, the algorithm will run and will give out some calculation. I talk a lot about machine learning. Machine learning is again a subset, is a part of the artificial intelligence, which helps to learn the system automatically, and it is like a program. You key in the data and you give a algorithm, and it's try to learn from the pattern to make the system more better and better. You must have read in some of the things that, for example, the chess machine developed, the Deep Blue was starting learning on its own. That's working on the machine learning. So sometimes you key in the features, but machine learning is smart that it start looking internally the pattern and try to be more improved and be able to give you more problem solving approaches. Again, this is an enabler for people, the user, to understand how does the output is helping me in that aspect. And deep learning is a subset of machine learning. So deep learning is the smallest part, then you go to machine learning, and AI is the bigger picture which we see in the real world. In the deep learning, you're talking about different analyzing factors which you are looking at, how does the networks are connected, and you are programming that network to get some meaningful information. Again, these are not only for computer science graduate. As a finance students, you also need to make sure that you understand these concepts, because these are the concepts which are going to drive the future of finance in every aspect of accounting and finance. So you need to, and there are accounting tools which are using these systems. There is not something called robo auditing at the moment. You look at the machine learning tools which are going to identify the key patterns, the keywords into the audits, and able to identify the fraud. So robo auditors are also going to be something new in the accounting world. In finance world, definitely you have a lot of application of the AI, machine learning, and so on. This three topic itself, we can talk for an hour to explain what are all these. But again, keeping the time constraint in mind, I'm not going too deep into it. But one thing, combination of this is something called robotic process automation, which is happening in a company. Now, robotic process automation is very important to understand why company needs robotic process, because some of the jobs will be very much tedious, repetitive. You don't need human to do that, because if you have programmed it in a way, for example, like the machine line, or look at the example of what you call the robots handling some of the, in fact, even the, I saw even the ITS had a virtual graduation recently, right? I saw some of the photos online. In fact, some of the universities are doing robotic graduation where robots are walking down to collect the certificate on behalf of the graduates. But in the real world setup, if you're looking into the robotic process, you're looking at converting a repetitive work, manual work, into a automated work where you don't need human to do that thing. It is just putting in some information. You can even look into looking into the robotic. Uh, this is basically to improve the efficiency and the cost component. Why you need 10 people to do a repetitive work which a system can do at the cost of 5 people, for example. I'm not saying that this will reduce the job, but those humans can be better employed in somewhere else rather than doing a. It's not about displacing human job. It's all about putting human to a better use, because human can do a better job rather than doing a repetitive job, and that's how the company is trying to make better use of human. And that comes with all the skills which all of you will learn through your program, whichever program you're doing. So try to improve on your skills, which makes you more suitable and more indispensable in an organization. And that also helps the in terms of your financial management, because that's going to reduce your return of investment. Sorry, increase return of investment, reduce the cost, human cost to it, and maybe that particular cost can be used to maybe invest somewhere else, or maybe buy machinery which is going to enhance the productivity and to increase or give more returns to the company. So there can be a lot of business cases when it comes to the RPA when we look into that. Also remember, one shoes doesn't fit all, because the problem is that we need to have a strategy why we want to go to robotic. It's not about just catching trend. Many people talk about AI, machine learning, or we have an AI system, but company need to evaluate themselves. Do you need it? Is it going to help your existing process? Are you going to reduce the cost? Is it going to increase the efficiency? Is it going to increase the profitability? So there need to be a strategy. There need to be an objective behind implementing these RPA into the system. So RPA is again going to help in financial management of a company, because it can be bringing positive output to the company in that sense. I think I need a water break, if we're talking for so long. So give me a moment, please.
No worries, ma'am.
So looking at the specifically financial management, that was the overall view I was giving you. But if I have to look specifically, how does the RPA can really help into financial management? It gives you a higher quality in the sense that you can reduce human errors. For example, if a particular product on a machine line, if you are able to do a wrong thing, then the whole product need to be discarded, and that can bring a lot of wastage, lot of losses for the company. And that type of human errors can be eliminated if we programmed and if we use the RPA into system. We can also improve the compliance and auditability of the process. We can also have a higher staff satisfaction, because some of the works are done in a better way by the machine, and the end users or the people who are towards the end process are better managing the job. It can also increase the workforce capacity and also increase the customer service. It boosts productivity. RPA can also boost productivity for in financial management, because the time will be reduced, so you can produce more. Average handling time is reduced by 40% in an organization if RPA is improved. Imagine handling time reduced by 40%, how much it can convert into dollar value. It's all about converting your time into dollar value. Uh, so company has to look into that, how the RPA can help into boosting the productivity. Again, it can also give you a 24/7 monitoring, because it is all automated, so you can monitor from anywhere. Imagine in the lockdown, if you have some process which are manual and you can't go to the company, what will happen to the process? Some of the machine can get rusted if you're not, because if the area is completely locked down and nobody is allowed to go to the company. If some processes are automated, you can only go once in a week or once in few days to see how the system is working. So that also helps to boost the productivity, especially with the cost saver. Definitely, initially it can be high investment, but in the long run it can be a cost saver for the, because you can put the human use to a better purpose, and also you can look into the repetitive cost, which can be more efficient with the initial. Some of the survey has shown that the processing cost has been reduced by 80%. Imagine you are able to save 80% in the cost if you are going to automate the process. This include a lot of factors there, but definitely there will be an incentive for people to use the RPA. They can also pay back in up to 3 months. Implementation speed is faster. If you have a manual process to be implemented, it might take time. You need many man hours to implement that, but with the machine into the place, you can do it in a faster pace, and that can also be helpful in reusing that. So that was all about managing the technology from the corporate side of perspective, right? But quickly touching on one thing, which is the extension of the AI, or extension of the robo, which is the robo advisor, which is the wealth tech. Wealth tech is the wealth management of wealth using technology. So from the financial planning perspective, we are now no more using human wealth advisor. We are using wealth advisor in the banks, but the amount of wealth advisors are getting reduced. Why? Because we are going into robo advisory, which is going to give me some system-based analysis. What will be the more profitable investment? What are the areas where I can invest more? It is also going to help in organizing spending and receiving our money, both as an individual as a company. So many companies are also going to hire robo advisors within the organization, as well as outsourcing it to make sure that the investments are done at a higher. Remember, one of the component of financial management was investment. So if you are the finance manager, you also need to make sure that you are investing into right securities to generate profit for the companies. You are investing into right instrument, and so on. So robo advisory can also come as a handy tool for that. With that, I finish my lecture here, and I will be open for discussion.
Thank you, Prof. Navis. I think, dear all participants, Prof. Navis is already, we are in question and answer. Any question from the audience? Okay, Prof. Navis, there is Cesarius Bertrand. Can you switch on your camera, Cesarius, and then you can ask the Prof. Navis what is going to your question. Cesarius? Hello, Cesarius? Yes? I think you...
Okay. Can you hear my voice?
Yes, Cesarius.
Okay. Thank you, Yodita. Thank you, Ms. Nafis, for your lecture. So I have maybe 1 until 2 questions. So if digitalization, maybe from internet or from robotics, becomes an easy way, how do we respond to the possibilities or even the bad risks that can occur, such as data hacking, manipulation, and also cyber crimes that tend to harm? Do we need, and the second, do we need to set technological boundaries in digital financial management? If necessary, maybe you can define the boundaries such as what limits that are appropriate for it. Maybe that's all from me.
Thank you, Cesarius. Interesting question. Both questions are important. You are very right to say that the moment we are going more technologically advanced, the concept of cybersecurity comes into place. Always remember, I don't know how many of you are hacker here. They can be students of accounting and finance, can be also hacker. There's no harm to be hacker, where hacking can be also done for some good purposes. Always remember, when the technology is developed, there is always a hacker also equip themselves with a better way to hack an intelligence system. There's no doubt about it. Not even the bigger system, in fact, if the NASA can be hacked, in fact, the Pentagon can be hacked, then smaller banks or smaller organization can be easily hacked. No doubt about it. It's all about to make sure that there is a right cybersecurity measures in the organization. No organization can have 100% foolproof. The channel which we are using right now, I mentioned about Zoom earlier, right? Zoom was hacked multiple times during the month of February and March, when the Zoom was becoming one of the channel for the online meetings and personal information was going away. But it all depends on the best practices, for example, as a user like us, or even if in an organization, when you're using an organization, you always see that the mails are coming, the email, for example, or you're not allowed to go beyond and browse anything. You can't download software, right? You cannot install software which are not approved by the company. There's a reason behind it. Sometimes even the university allow you not to do that. There is a reason behind it, because you do not trust the provider, the sender, and they can put a ransomware or malware into your system. So there is no 100% guarantee, but there's always the best practices to put in place. And you cannot saying that I will not adopt or not use the technology because I have a chance of, even for example, you are going to a shop in your area, you can get robbed, right? There is no guarantee that you will not be robbed, or you will not be hit by a robber, or you will be hit by a car. There is always a risk involved. So risk will be always there. It's all about putting the best risk practices in an organization, especially when managing the digital services, or managing the customer data, or your employee data, or your user data, to make sure that there is. And that's why the data protection and data privacy becomes very important in a digital world. So when you start working, you will see that there will be a lot of emphasis. If you are dealing with the customer data, you are supposed to be very much loyal to the company, and not be, because you can also be prosecuted on that. The second question was all about your limiting your risk. Like Cesarius, how do you limit your risk by the company using this technology, right?
The limitation of the activity to measure the risk.
Limitation of the activity to measure the risk. You're talking from the general risk management perspective, financial risk perspective, or you're talking from technology perspective?
Maybe from technology first.
Okay, from technology side, you do not adopt a particular technology into your organization just because your competitor had adopted it. First of all, you need to have a strategy why you need to adopt it. Do you have a proper infrastructure in place into your company or not? If you do not have a proper infrastructure into your company, it means that you are not have enough guideline or strategy in place to adopt that system. Because if you get a new, if your system is hacked, for example, the customer will lose trust, right? You will not be able to regain your customer unless you go back and show that you have made sure that you are able to put right risk measures into the company. So it's very important to maintain the trust of your stakeholder, which can be your user, which can be your employees, which can be your buyers and your lenders, and so on. Coming from the general perspective, in terms of from your financial management perspective, see, risk is one thing which is the most important concept in finance. It's always going to be an important area where managers tend to look in. You cannot guarantee 100% risk management in any organization. There can be multiple form of the risk. Is always to look into identifying the risk and to have certain measures in place to manage. There will be always 1 or 2% of the risk which is unknown to the company, even to us. We don't know. If suddenly we are talking right now, there is an earthquake, right? That's a risk. We can die. So that also is not guaranteed, but we are making sure that we stay in a house, or we stay in a house which is more earthquake proof, or our surrounding is more earthquake. That is called a risk measure. But again, the intensity can be any high and can anyway harm us. So risk management is the tool which we are going to limit the risk, but we cannot make it 100% soundproof and say that we are invincible and this particular risk will never happen to an organization. Thank you, Cesarius. I hope this answers your question.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Nafis, for your answer.
Thank you. More questions, guys?
Wait, Prof. Nafi, is there any one question again? Is it okay? I think from
Yes, please.
Naufaldi.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Naufaldi. Naufaldi? What is your question? Hello.
Hello? Hello?
Yes.
Assalamualaikum. Can you hear me, Mr. Nafis?
A bit louder, please, Naufaldi.
Okay, okay.
Please, bit louder.
Wait. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. Assalamualaikum, Mr. Nafis.
Waalaikumsalam.
My question is, what can a country do to survive an economic recession?
What a country can do to overcome economic recession.
Yeah, that's my question. Yeah.
Okay. That's a bit unrelated to topic. I think some of you have heard that my first degree was in economics. Okay, so anyway, economics is, if you are teaching finance, you need to have a good knowledge of economics, definitely. And coming from the economic recession point of view, if we have to refer what's happening currently in most parts of the world, where countries are going through economic downturn. See, some of the economic recessions are maybe country made, locally applicable. Some of the things will be globally linked to the events happening in the global, and some of the things will be beyond the control of any particular country. So we always talk about macroeconomics and microeconomics, right? So if you look at the macroeconomic macroeconomic environment of the country, we need to understand what are the channels from where the channels of the risk can come from. So if we are looking into trade practices, for example, I think many of you were not born or maybe very young during the 98 crisis, Asian economic crisis, which affected Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, Philippines, and so on. One of the channel was to look into the trade linkages. And that was because the ASEAN countries were very much trade integrated with each other, and the contagion of the crisis passed from one country to another. For example, no country can have a full proof, but again, your financial system need to be well equipped. You need to have enough amount of cash buffer in the banking system, and that's one thing. The second thing is that whatever happens, make sure that the inflation is always at a manageable level. One of the reasons why economic go through a bigger downturn is because inflation will be uncontrollable for the company, which will give rise to the higher price, which can also go into the purchasing power parity of the individuals, which will make your currency devalued, and it will have a domino effect in the economy. So it need to have essential fundamentals in place. One of the things is that companies should never revert to borrowing from World Bank and IMF. I don't know whether you have read this or not, but Indonesia borrowed heavily during 98 crisis, but Malaysia didn't borrow from that point of time, in 1998 crisis, which saved Malaysia, and Indonesia was having a low economic growth for a very long period of time. Why? Because they were still repaying back to the IMF and the World Bank for the amount they borrowed during the crisis. So a lot of economic strategy goes into the picture, and that's why the central bank monetary policy also has to come. And that monetary policy and the financial policy of the finance ministry has to go hand in hand to make sure that the economic fundamentals are in place to make a country recession proof. But again, some of the risk you cannot really afford, especially like COVID-19, which will, even how prepared you are still going to face the impact, because you are globally connected, and if the world is completely shut down, you can't have any measures to protect yourself except for keeping the country running. Okay, thanks, Naufaldi. I hope I answer your question.
Thank you, Prof. Nafis.
I can take one more question if you have. Anybody has a burning question.
Is there any question again? Or maybe, there is 2 participants. Just one participant, yes, Prof. Nafis?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. because there is. Okay, Tasya. Can you hear me, Tasya?
So we were sorry that I couldn't open my camera because of my signal. So I would like to ask a question regarding the financial management in the pandemic situation. So how we manage the financial in the pandemic situation, especially when we have a business or something like that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tasia. I think this was the focus of the discussion which I had in the beginning itself. Um, Financial management is about making sure that you have enough liquidity. You are able to have enough money in the company to make it float during difficult time. You do not borrow too much, whether you will face problem in repaying, because you might have a situation where you do not have enough buyer of your product, or your product has stalled somewhere. So do not go overboard and borrow, have a lot of borrowing in the market. You also do not too much dependent on the financial institution in terms of getting the money, rather than build your capital reserve in the company. As I mentioned to you, you should have enough money to make your company float for 3 to 6 months, to make sure that even if you have facing problems in selling your stuff, or transferring from one place to another, you are able to repay your employees, you are able to manage your day-to-day expenses. So cash flow becomes very important. Do not also leave a lot of money with your buyers, because if you're not able to receive your accounts from your buyers, you will be having the cash crunch. So it all comes down to your management of your cash flow, plus also to see that you have enough liquidity in the company to make it float. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Nafis. I think it's so interesting, Prof. Nafis, because the limitation of time. If you still have any question, you can contact directly to Prof. Nafis, to his email. I know the COVID-19 and the financial management is really interesting topic today. Maybe if we still have another time, maybe we can invite Prof. Nafis again to another lecture, Prof. Nafis.
No worries, anytime.
Okay, if there isn't any COVID, probably Prof. Nafis can go directly to business management, but there is a limitation here again.
I have shared my email here, so those who have
Yeah.
those who want to write to me, just identify yourself from ITS, and I will be happy to. Because again, for cybersecurity purpose, if I don't know you, I might not open your email. So just identify yourself with that, and we'll be happy to talk more on this topic or related topic,
Yes.
Ms. Yudita. And thanks for having me. Thanks to all of you, boys and girls, to listen to me on a Tuesday afternoon. And don't worry too much about the future. It's all going to be fine. These are short-term challenges in the market. Only one thing you should remember, which I always tell in my lecture, is that you should be doing Ancora Imparo. Ancora Imparo means I'm still learning. It's the tagline from Monash, where I did my PhD, and I worked with Monash. So and they have a tagline called Ancora Imparo, which means I'm still learning. Never think you have learned enough. There's always enough opportunity, and especially with you guys in the current technology world, where information, data, resources are almost free. You can learn from anywhere in the world with a click of a mouse. It's very important to get knowledge, especially in the finance and accounting and business areas. Things are moving at a very fast pace. When you go to sleep, the US market opens up, and that will have an impact on Indonesian market next morning. So when I get up in the morning, the first 1 hour I spend is to look through all the news report on financial market, especially in the in the digital world, crypto, how the market perform and so on. Because that's very important when you are teaching as well. You need to be aware of what's happening. So as a student also, I give you a very simple tip, if you are interested in any area of finance, you subscribe to the pages, for example, Financial Times, Bloomberg, the Wall Street Journal on your Facebook. You will get feed, you will get the news. So even if you just read the summary without clicking the link, you will get to know what's happening in the real world, how the stock market performing, what's happening in the banking world, where the stock market is going up and down and so on. So these are some small tips, boys and girls, who you can use it. And there is always a lot to learn, which is going to help you in your future world, So just keep on learning and do your best in your job.
Okay. Thank you for your advice, Prof. Nafis. Yes.
Thank you.
Students, don't forget to read the news because it's really important for finance, economic, accounting, everything in the finance world is really fluctuative today, as Professor Nafis.
And Pak Barto, if you go to Harissa, eat on my behalf. Don't forget to eat bebek goreng on my behalf.
Okay. We will meet next year, right?
Yes, Prof. Nafis, you're going to meet Pak Berto next year, I think.
So you will get to use Malaysian, but we don't get bebek goreng here, by the way. I don't see bebek goreng here. Okay, anyway, have a good evening, everyone. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Nafis. Ladies and gentlemen, because it's going to be the end of this session, but before we end the session, could you turn on your video and then we can take a picture before
you want to take picture? I also stay online?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, please turn on your video. And then if I say count 1, 2, 3, give a best smile. 1, 2, 3. Again, Prof. Nafis. One more. 1, 2, 3. No? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Nafis. And I would like to say thank you for all the participants here from UNESA and another public university or our student. And then, hello, Joshua. I give you back to Joshua to close the session.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Well, everyone, time flies so fast. Our event today has come to an end. For any quick question we could not answer due to time limitation, please do not hesitate to know by email mbusiness@its.asyadi. Once more, mbusiness@its.asyadi. We would like to express our great appreciation for Professor Nafis Salam, who already shared his knowledge to us. We also would like to thank to everyone in here. We do hope everyone enjoy an insightful, productive meeting. On behalf of this organizing committee, as the MC, we would like to apologize for any inconveniences that might be happen during the event. Thank you. Have a good day. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Prof. Nafis. Thank you, everyone. Say bye-bye.